Maybe that's better. Hi there. Welcome to Neighborhood Comics. My name is Lee. I am one of the owners here at Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. Thanks for joining us today. We are really excited to talk comics. It's a crazy day in America. I feel like I could have said that any day over the last few years, but it's especially crazy today. But for the next little bit, we're going to be talking about some fun stuff. We're going to be talking about comic books. That's what we do here. That's what we love. And over the next couple of months here at the beginning of 2021, we are going to have a number of different creators join us for these weekly conversations. We've got a great lineup. You can check out the full schedule over at our website, neighborhoodcomics.com. We'll be talking about everything from smaller creator-owned titles all the way through big books like Spider-Man and the like. So I hope that no matter what type of comics that you enjoy, that you'll join us, learn about something new, maybe learn a little bit more about the process and celebrate these amazing creators and what they do. Our first guest is going to be a man who I have had the privilege of knowing for several years outside of the comic book world, but that is probably what he is best known for. Josh Hood is an artist and illustrator who has worked on a number of high-profile projects from the major companies that you all know and love, and also has been at the helm of creator-owned project as well. Today, we are here to talk to Josh about his new book for Dark Horse Comics. He is taking over the art duties on Avatar: The Next Shadow. This is a brand new miniseries that continues the lore of the world in James Cameron's Avatar universe. And we're going to welcome him right here. See, we're going to count down 3, 2, 1. There's Josh.
How's it going?
Hey, man. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you're doing well.
I mean, as well as anybody could do.
Now, are you joining us from Atlanta tonight?
I am. I'm in Mableton, which is about 11 miles west of downtown.
Awesome. You are close enough that I like to claim you as one of our local artists, and you've spent a lot of time in Savannah, so I would claim you anyway, no matter where you lived. But thanks for joining me over video today. With COVID, we're not having a whole lot of events in the shop, so this creator interview series is a way for us to kind of bring some of that flavor back in, where we're used to having people come in and do signings and give Q&A sessions and let people know about the cool work that they're doing. So now that I've got you, Josh, I'm going to do the whole 20 questions thing, and I'm really going to pin you to the wall with some really tough business here. Like
it's about time somebody did.
When did you first come in contact with the world of comic books? What was the first book for you that I want to dig deep? I want to go way back in your way.
You wanted to make me cry right off the bat, huh, Barbara Walters? I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, yes.
When I was a little boy, my father came home one day with 2 comic books. One was an old issue of Daredevil with this beautiful John Byrne cover, and the other one was an issue of Dazzler. And he bought that for my sister, and he bought the Daredevil for me. And I ended up with both of them.
And what was that like? Do you have a concept of like superheroes, or of like what the world of comic book was? How old were you when those got in your hands?
This would have been, I would have been maybe 9, 8 or 9. So the perfect age for that kind of thing.
On, Saturday morning cartoons, or you were.
Oh, sure. It had been, for me, it had been like the Super Friends and Thundar the Barbarian and that sort of thing. And toys, a lot of toys, and weirdly some Japanese imports like Shogun Warriors and, not like normally action figure stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Shogun Warriors had a really interesting foothold in the US for a really small moment. They made a really big impact on a lot of people who grew up to be fans of kaiju and mechs and all that cool world of stuff. So that's cool that kind of came into your orbit.
Yeah, those Super Robo things. I mean, now I've paid like $200 to try to find, to get some of those back. Where in the day, what do they cost? Like $7.99 maybe.
That's what we do when we get a little bit of money in our pocket. We chase that nostalgia and that thrill of that thing that made us feel so good when we were
It was
9 or
totally
10.
worth it. It was 100% worth it. Yeah.
Exactly. You're talking to a guy who collects toys too, Josh. So we're all good. We're all friends here. This is
Okay.
So you had that Daredevil book. You had that Dazzler book. Did you have a local comic book store? Where would you go to get your books?
No, not for years and years and years. For me, it was all gas stations, grocery stores. My great aunt worked at a drugstore in Cartersville, Georgia, and he had a spinner rack, and he would only buy new comics when the rack started to empty out. So I would have to go in there and buy Archie comics and what's the little devil? I can't even remember what character that is.
The little red guy with the little pitchfork, and it was also a Harvey or Archie title. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So to get a new issue of Thor or Batman, I'd have to buy comics I just literally did not care about. But fortunately, they were pretty cheap at the time. 60 cents, I think, was the going rate.
Us Bronze Age babies. That's what we were able to. We had a little bit of window for the copper books jumped us up to $1.25 and bankrupt.
It was all of a sudden, yeah. It was like, do I have lunch or do I buy a Walt Simonson Thor?
I had a very similar. My experience was very similar to that. Small town, Georgia. Popping over to the drugstore and whatever they had on the shelf. And I'm sure it was one of those situations where they, tore the covers off and sent them back out of the back door every couple of months. But I couldn't follow a series. It was impossible. And, you'd pick up a Superman, a Man of Steel 23, and you would never see the next issue of that. And
nope.
Yeah, in my town, forbid if you were trying to find a Marvel book. They weren't there. They didn't
really
exist.
Marvel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Marvel didn't have penetration.
The weird little local shops were DC books and were like your Archie, like your family friendly kind of stuff. Which, looking at some of those Archies now, I'm not sure how family friendly they all were, but that's just my adult mind bleeding into all that good stuff. Well, when did you find, where was it that you found your first comic book shop or your first regular shop?
It was in Macon, Georgia. It was a place called the Comics Castle, I think, spelled with 2 Ks, which is, for Macon, that might mean something. I'm not sure. Oh, no. Comics Castle. I think that's what it was called. And I walked in and had, all I had up to that point was like the magazine rack next to the counter and an Exxon station was like my main source of Hulk and Thor. And that's what I had been collecting just because they were getting those every month. I walked into this store and lost my mind. There were crazy black and white issues. You opened them up and they just stunk of ink and newsprint and copy after copy after copy of X-Men, which you just couldn't get. And
about how old were you at that point?
I would have been 13 maybe.
Yeah, that's prime discovering your comic book shop. And especially for someone who was looking for books like X-Men. That's such a great that era of X-Men 2, such a great young person's book where you're dealing with these intergalactic threats, but you're also, edgy and you don't fit in. And, papers and books have been written on how the X-Men relate to across the spectrum of everybody. So that's not surprising that's one I could see you being drawn to. But speaking of being drawn to, as you were getting these books, as you were young, as you were exploring this, finding this whole bigger world now that that there are independent books out there, smaller publishers, some of the not mainstream stuff. At what point did you find yourself drawing, in that style or thinking about drawing in a comic book mindset?
Yeah, I had already been doing it. Even though I hadn't owned a comic yet, I had already been doing it. Drawing what I had seen, like Super Friends kind of stuff. Drawn a lot of Batman, drawn a lot of Superman. When the Transformers came on television, that was a big one for me. Yeah. I'd spent a lot of time drawing robots fighting each other, and I wish I'd give anything to be able to find some of those images, and see what they what I thought they looked like then, and what I would think of them now.
Yeah. I think that's true, because as kids, we do fill in so many of those blanks. And I personally, I've got all these drawings from like after I saw the Star Wars movies as a kid, and I couldn't go home and watch it. So I was drawing to try to remember what the robots looked like when I got home. And
Yeah,
you
I
go
can
back,
dig
and
that.
I've got a couple of those, and you look at them and no, I'm hard pressed to determine who those robots are after seeing them this many times. But yeah, no, that's great. So I guess probably your other influence may have been, like for a lot of us who didn't have access to comics, your kind of newspaper strips too. Were you kind of visualizing panels at that point too, or was it not that way?
No, not at all. No, I didn't really start paying attention to newspaper strips until later, after I had started to get like a steady supply of comics in. So, I mean, my early drawings were never sort of sequential. It was always a one image sort of thing, and then throw it in a closet, one image sort of thing. And by the end, the reason I don't have any of these is because I would have just stacks and stacks and stacks, reams of lined paper filled. I can remember in the 5th grade, my teacher, Mrs. Fields.
Shout out Mrs. Fields.
Yeah, shout out Mrs. Fields. I'm half taking notes and half mostly drawing. I'm mostly drawing. She just takes my pencil and my pad away from me, and I'm just sitting there with like twiddling my thumbs, and wouldn't give it back. I was so angry.
Take back that shout out to Mrs. Fields. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Josh.
You'll never make a living at this. She wasn't the last.
You're so great at this. So you've been drawing, you've been reading, you've been picking stuff up. At what point did you start to put those things together and think, whoa, this is somebody's job. Somebody gets paid to draw these cool stories, and that's what they do.
Yeah, it wasn't until I started to recognize individual styles. It probably started with John Byrne. He jumped from, I think it was Fantastic Four at the time. He jumped from Fantastic Four to like the Incredible Hulk, and then he started doing Superman after that. And I recognized the style. It started to become like a fingerprint. And I realized that this is one guy doing all these books. His name is John Byrne. Turns out he was he's a John Byrne. But that sort of let me know that at least this was an option.
Yeah.
Where I never would have considered it necessarily beforehand.
Yeah. Because did you have other people in your life that made art for a living, or did you have people that you could look toward, personally for those kind of things?
No. I don't even remember anybody being artistic, like painting or quilt making or nothing. There was a vacuum of that sort of creativity. So it was me and Bob Ross and some guy on Saturday afternoons on PBS who would like tell you stories while I did charcoal drawings. And
yeah, that was.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. GPB licensed some crazy thing.
Yeah, they used to have crazy crap on there like that all the time. Man,
yeah. So John was your gateway. So you're like, here's a guy. This is a real name. This is somebody out there who's drawing all these cool books and is able to not even do one thing. And, for John not being a creator obviously he created auxiliary characters and themes and storylines and helped contribute to those, but he wasn't there at the beginning. He was someone who came on during the run of these characters, as I'm sure you continue to learn about that. And you're like, okay, well, he got a job drawing the Hulk. Rad. Yeah. And when you made that connection and you started to think, well, that's what I want to start to pursue too. What were those steps for you? Where did you kind of start to plot out a bridge from drawing for fun to drawing for profit?
Well, I stuck with art through high school, and I got better and better and better. And I got good enough at just drawing that I got an illustration scholarship at a college in Waleska, Georgia called Reinhardt College. Yeah. And I went there for a little while, and that was sort of my first upper level art education stuff. Huge leaps. I mean, I highly recommend at least the first couple of years of art school. you don't necessarily need the degree. Nobody cares, but some of that early base education, you definitely have to get. And then I moved to Dalton, Georgia, for a girl.
The coffee
And
capital of the world. Yep.
the capital of the world, that's right. Where our illustrious leader was just 2 days ago. Can you believe that?
We're talking about comic books, Josh.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. So, yeah, I moved to Dalton. And they had 2 or 3 comic book shops in Dalton. Yeah. And at this point, I've got a little bit of money, and this is what I spent it on. So I'm bouncing from shop to shop. And one day I see a sign on the door, learn how to draw comics like the professionals, all that kind of stuff. And there was a pro in town named Robert Brown who was working for Marvel at the time. He was doing work out of the Spider-Man office. And I went and saw him and joined his class. And I just ended up like hanging out at his house constantly. So much so that I moved in to a brand new set of condos, like right behind him. And he's the one that helped me get my first professional job at Marvel.
Wow.
It was a job he couldn't finish on a Spider-Man holiday special. It's only like 6 pages. Spider-Man, or the Spider Clone, and the Human Torch are having coffee. I actually have a page of it on the wall over here. Are having coffee on top of the Statue of Liberty at Christmas time, talking about like how messed up their lives are.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do.
Well, I hear that from a lot of creators. It really, there's a networking aspect to getting into this world.
It is so networking. It really genuinely is. Like,
you think of that being in Dalton, Georgia, like that's not a place, that's not New York City. That's not a big hub, a creative hub where you expect to find a group of people. That was really just a case of you having your eyes open and paying attention. And one of the great things about this job, I would think, is that at this point, you really can live anywhere and do the work. And so,
even back then, when we were doing it on paper, I mean, now it's all digital workflow, but back then they just gave you a FedEx number and said, every time you're ready to send us pages, just slap them in a box and ship them to New York,
Wow. So you made that connection. He got you in, doing that original work at Marvel. And then what was your next? Was it the sort of thing that once some editors or, once you kind of got on the docket of slate of these are some people that we can reach out to who are professional and do good work, that you've got some portfolio pages and a list there, or is it?
Yeah, I picked up a little bit more work through Marvel, through Ralph Macchio was the Marvel editor at the time. Yeah. And I started doing some smaller fill-in-y kind of stuff for him. And then got a couple of mini series of my own. I finished out a series called The Green Goblin. I did the last 3 issues of a series that Scott McDaniel had been drawing before, and just kind of put it to bed. It was already canceled when I got it, but I'm not going to complain because I only had 1 credit to my name at that time.
Yeah, for sure.
And did some Venom work, and then with those like few things, I just started. I got the phone numbers of the editors at Marvel and DC because I already knew I had the Marvel list.
Yeah.
So I got the I can't remember who I got the DC list off of, and I just started calling them. Hey, my name's Josh, and I work on Venom, and I was coming to New York and wanted to swing by and show you my stuff. And they're like, "Let me put you on the schedule." That's all it took.
Once you had published pages, or you were a known entity, that definitely made the difference. And at that point, that was still that's in person. You're showing up, you're making the rounds.
Those are great trips. I miss those trips.
Well, now I talk to so many students and teachers here at SCAD who are working towards this. And so now there's, of course, your digital portfolio and your social media presence and all of these different things can really have an exponential effect on someone who is new to this, who, if you are able to go ahead and cultivate a social media following, you have perhaps a built-in audience of people who want to buy your book. Or if you have all of this work online, presumably, you've got a portfolio of things ready to go that you're comfortable publishing and all of that. Do you feel like you getting in before that kind of became more of the norm. How do you feel like that maybe has changed the playing field, or opened things up, or just changed the dynamic of how people can make those connections now? Is anything
I
really
think
different?
I think it's really democratized the work, and we have become sort of a pure meritocracy. It's the reason that I believe comic book art is the best that it's ever been, top to bottom. Like, you always had talent, there were always the guys that you would never forget. But even on the worst books now, the artwork is pretty good. Even on the absolute, I mean, even on the dingiest, nothing.
Names.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't know who to name because everybody's so good.
Yeah.
You flip through even the section of previews, our catalog that we flip through religiously every month. Even the books that are like small published stuff, they have these beautiful painted covers and just wonderful interior artwork. We're at a high watermark.
I 100% agree with you. I am shocked, honestly, every time I open up a new box of books and I start, because we have a nice diverse base of customers here, we order from a lot of the smaller publishers, and we order heavy on some of them, depending on who the writer and artist is and what we know about other books those editors have championed. And some of these publishers that, honestly, before I opened, I never thought we would carry their books. Just, I knew who they were, but it wouldn't make sense to rack copies. They're spending money on the nice books, nice paper, nice stock. And then the quality of the writing and the art is just as good as anything else. And in some cases, just amazingly beautiful. I agree with you 100%. And I'm amazed by all the new talent that just keeps coming out. We've got so many great people that we've kind of become accustomed to, but I love that so many people are getting a chance and getting out there and kind of pushing everybody a little bit too. Do you see that?
It really
when
does.
you consider artists, I think a lot of us have kind of, we compare ourselves to everybody else, and that's healthy and it's not healthy when we do it, perhaps to extremes. But how do you deal with that when you see somebody else's work, maybe that's kind of in the same genre or style as you, and how do you deal with that? Is that something you think about, or do you just kind of push it away and keep your head down?
No, it's something I deal with a lot. I mean, you have a tendency to compare yourself to the people who you think are the best, and then you're really killing yourself there, because I'm comparing myself to guys who are selling like 180,000 copies an issue, and I need to be thinking more like the 10 and 12,000 copies an issue. But I don't know. I try to learn from them. I do whatever I can to get. Like, for instance, there is in 2012 or 13, Panini Comics, a company out of Italy, created black and white versions of sort of the big Marvel crossovers of the time, like Fear Itself, House of M, and Civil War. And they're 10 by 14. They're giant digest-sized books. So when you open it up, it's practically full-size black and white art of the original inks, not the original pencils, but the original inks.
Yeah.
And, I'll just pour over like, why does this work? What is working here? There's so much to learn from that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much how I approach that.
That is such a healthy way to do it. I've talked to people, especially maybe younger artists, who kind of get paralyzed when they see somebody who's doing something that they want to do and get really intimidated or get down on themselves. But that idea of that you're constantly learning, that you see a spread or a layout or how a point of perspective works, or, and you're just like, oh, you can do that. Okay, cool. Like, that's something that I wouldn't have thought of, but maybe put that in the back pocket for later, because I bet at some point you can.
I have the technical knowledge. Like, I can look at a piece of artwork now and I know exactly how it was made, but it's that space between technicality and artistry, and the selection of what did they draw and what did they not draw. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for, like real esoteric, hard to define sort of stuff. For young artists, I always say, it doesn't have to be incredibly elaborate. Look at Chris Samney. Look at what he can do with 4 lines, so you don't have to kill yourself to get to be great.
Just do the work and keep learning.
Yeah.
I think that's practice. And when you are only drawing for yourself, that's when you get to really dig deep, right? And that's where you can mess up and nobody knows but you.
Yeah.
So I met you, we were talking about this earlier, and I'm like, how many decades ago? That seems so ridiculous, and it's not actually that long. But like a lot of
it wasn't last century, but it's close. Yeah,
right. You do commercial illustration work and that sort of thing as well. I own a web development company. We had a chance to work together on a client, and we were getting coffee down at one of the little, I think it was probably Gallery Espresso here in Savannah, and chatting. And you just so offhandedly, mention that, I've got some DC work and some, I'm like, you just don't know who anybody is, until you start sitting down and you're like, oh my God, I'm such a nerd. And you were so professional about it. And all I wanted to do was like ask you JLA questions and like just be a real, I wanted to just explode on it. So I'm very grateful for you for being so professional and setting that tone so I didn't just gush all over the place.
I'll answer any questions you got. I don't know if I can. I mean, I did that one JLA series.
Is that the one, the one with the monsters?
Scary Monsters, yeah.
Monsters. Yeah. I think we have the miniseries right over there. So
cool.
Yeah. It's I was gonna grab it today, but I got a press for time. So you're doing all this work for the publishers. You have a chance to work with a couple of different creators on a book for Black Mask called We Can Never Go Home. How did this book come about? How did you get with this team, and how did this genesis start?
I had left comics in 2000, the early 2000s comics, it kind of imploded a little bit. I guess Marvel was facing like its 15th bankruptcy or whatever, and there wasn't as healthy an independent publishing line as there is now. Image was just still the same 5 guys doing their books, and there was no Boom, there was no Dynamite, there was no IDW. There might have been an IDW at the time, but no, though I guess there wasn't. Dark Horse, that was about it. And there just was no work to be had, so I switched over to commercial illustration. I missed it so much that I decided I got to come back to this, but I'm only going to do like small stuff. I hooked up with a company called Comics Alliance, which it was like an online community for comics. Put some sample pages out that I had done, like just kind of fooling around. And I think Matt Rosenberg found me that way and said, well, do you want to do 5 issues? We have funding.
Rad. So that's just another case of putting yourself out there. And that's a digital marketing, a digital networking piece there. So
I didn't think anything was going to come of it. It was like a idea sharing place.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people there with like different levels of talent. There were some very early beginners, and I had already done pro stuff, but I've been out for, over 10 years at that point. And I just put it up and, give me some criticism. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's right. What do I need to change? And I got some back, but I also got work out of it.
Yeah. That's cool. I thought this was be another one of those, this guy, this editor, kind of, knew some things and put this together, but that was a real kind of personal connection. And was this the first book that you worked on professionally that was not already an established property in one way or another?
Yeah. This is the first book that I actually have a little piece of. The first book that I helped define. Nobody had ever drawn these characters until I drew them. Is that true? I think they might have started with another artist and it didn't work out.
Spec work, for it maybe. Early stage work. I love this
because
it's a great story, but I love the art in the book, and I love the way that the panels are put together. The color is great in this. I mean, it has some really nice palettes as you kind of go through the book as well.
Oh,
One of my, I love the dress up page where she's
yeah.
putting on all of the costumes and complaining about how the female superhero costumes are
Bathing suit,
all
bathing suit, bathing suit. Yeah.
bathing suit with belt. Yeah.
That's a classic. That's a classic.
It's great. It is great. And what was that relationship with working with Matthew like? How is he in terms of, I know lots of different writers have different styles in terms of the scripts they deliver or the outlines that they provide. What is his collaboration style?
He doesn't really choose like this was a co-writing he was doing with a guy named Patrick Kindlin. They didn't really choose, I guess, sort of, it wasn't so specific camera angles, that kind of thing, Duncan and Maddie do this, then they go here, then they do something, then she accidentally punches somebody. It was that kind of storytelling. And then from there on, I have to sort of pace and set design. And so there was really a lot left for me to do, which is how I would prefer it, honestly.
Were all the dialogue beats there in the script as well, as in addition to the setting and the general movement?
Yes, I think a lot of the dialogue was already there. Maybe not for some of the panels, like oh no, I guess it would have been. I've still got the old scripts. So I'm gonna have to look them up. Yeah. There's a couple of pages in there where it's like 18 panels, 25 panels, and it's just a back and forth, rapid, Amy Sherman Palladino kind of conversation. And the planning that went into those, man. Oh, Lord God.
Well, you mentioned specifically pacing, and that's something I've really come to appreciate in more and more books, how much control the artist ultimately has in how the reader absorbs the story. And, from what you're saying in that script, and I was reading some things with Mitch Gerads working with Tom King about some of the things that he would get and some of the blanks he would have to fill in, and how he would choose to make some beats longer and to let them linger a little bit more when it wasn't implied in the script necessarily that it should do that. And how working with these structures, because ultimately as a comic artist, you're dealing with panels. You can control how the panels go. You can put splashes here and splashes there, but you're dealing with this sequence of events and how big or small or layered or how they break the pane or how they interact with each other, and the all-important what is on the other side of this page that so many people, I think, just in their minds don't think about the storytelling that in and of itself is. And as someone as an old school, comics fan knows, I mean, there's nothing better than flipping a page and then having your mind blown by that next big thing that you literally didn't see coming. So yeah, the pacing on this book, so good. I highly recommend it. If you guys haven't picked it up, this is really great. As Josh
still
said,
only $10.
Only $10. How are they getting away with that? And as Josh said, this is a creator-owned piece. He's got a piece of it. Support this man. Pick up this book. And at some point, maybe we'll get more. We'll get more of this story.
We absolutely will.
So, all right, little tease for that. So you've done creator-owned work. You've worked on things like Star Trek, and you've worked on, like you said, JLA and Venom and all kinds of high-profile projects. Out of those projects, out of the licensed, established world-building characters that you've worked with, which single, if there was a character that you really enjoyed drawing or exploring, or a toy box that you got to play with, what's the one out of those that you thought really, was the one that got you really excited and you think you were able to turn into some work you're really proud of?
The first Star Trek book I did was an Elseworlds book. It was an alternate reality book written by Donny Cates called Star Trek Deviations. And in it asked the question, what would have happened if Earth had been discovered by Romulans rather than Vulcans? So in our story, Earth is now a penal colony. Humans are the only prisoners on it, It's just a giant planet of indentured servants. And the next generation crew have somehow found each other and are um, trying to they're trying to affect the rescue of some important like figurehead that they need to get a hold of. And man, I had never done likenesses before, so that's always a pain. But the action was great, and the story was fantastic, and it just kept moving forward all the time. I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Were you a Star Trek fan before that? Did you watch The Next Generation?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can
And
remember sitting in my grandparents' living room with a lot of my family. I don't know why they were all there. I mean, it must have been like a Christmas thing when it came on, or New Year's or something. And we all just sat down and watched like the first episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation when it came on.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm pretty sure I watched that by myself. But so you've got history doing likenesses professionally. What's it like drawing cat people? So Josh's new project is Avatar: The Next Shadow. This is a miniseries from Dark Horse that is expanding on the James Cameron Avatar movie universe. So with this, if you recall the movie, we have the Na'vi. They are the indigenous people on a remote planet. Humans on Earth have developed interstellar transportation and have gone to use this land for its natural resources. Hilarity ensues. I'm just recapping.
Hilarity and hijinks kicks off.
But this is was a huge film. Was a blockbuster movie. Did huge bank.
It's still the highest grossing film of all time. Well, no, probably not after like Infinity War, right?
Yeah, for so long, and is up there.
Had a decade.
And a movie that cost a lot of money and a lot of time to make, and that is now in the development stages of expanding that film into a franchise with sequels that are coming out. And this is kind of our first taste of Avatar content in quite a while for people who are fans of this. So when this project came up, how did you come on board to join the book?
My agent. I have an agent now.
Good.
Yeah, my agent got this for me. Awesome. I guess it was probably a pretty easy sell. I'd already done Star Trek stuff. I'd already done a lot of licensed work. Yep. And yeah, so I put him to it, and he finally trumped this out for me.
I'm guessing, like the rest of the world, you had seen the movie, or you at least were familiar with the universe that you would be working with. And
I saw it a couple times in the theaters because it was so amazing. You know, like technically brilliant and beautiful, and it was the first time. Like, when's the last time we saw a 3D movie in the movie theaters?
Last time we went to a movie theater, Josh.
Oh, really? 2017.
Yeah. Before everybody started getting sick. I don't know. But yeah, no, it was really an event when that came out, and that was something where I don't recall the last time I agreed to pay for a 3D movie in the theater. And I love going to the theater, but it has to be something really special for me to fork over those extra $2 or $3.
It was the only way to see it. That's why I saw it twice, because I knew the second it came on, we've all got 60-inch televisions in our living room now, but there is no way that movie is going to look the same on a 60-inch television as it does on a 72-foot wide screen with those glasses on. There's no chance it's going to be the same. So I tried to absorb them as much as I could at the time.
I always kind of forget about that being a James Cameron movie in a really weird way, because his name is obviously attached really tight. But you think about the movies or the intellectual property, the world building that man has been a part of throughout his career. And, so much gets attached to something like Titanic, another one of those big, huge movies, and not a genre movie that necessarily a lot of us would be drawn to. But if you think about Terminator, and I can just like the breadth of creativity this guy's had. What has he had any kind of, from your vantage point, does he work kind of in any way as a story guide, or is there a story development team that works with Jim to form these stories that we're hearing now?
I know that the writer, Jeremy Barlow, had to, everything has to go through Lightstorm, which is his production company.
Right.
And I read, and I don't know if this is true, and I'm sure it's not going to pan out, but I read that the stuff, all the comics are supposed to be canonical to this story. They're just filling in gaps between movies.
Right.
Because I guess you're never going to be able to make a television show out of this. So, which now all of a sudden I'm like, why didn't they do like an animated series? Like, you know, the Navi Adventures, the wacky little adventures of the Navi.
The lawsuits all over the place. But no. Yeah, they could call it something different for sure. And but yeah, animation would totally work. And honestly, the way some networks are throwing money at stuff, it could just be, oh, this is just the humans. We're not going to show all the other stuff. This is just the humans in their work pods. And we'll just build a couple of sets and save all that money. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously anything that's that big that has a Disney theme park edition dedicated to it. There are fans of this franchise.
That's crazy.
So
yeah.
You talked about the writer having to get everything approved. And I've talked to a lot of other artists who have had to do likenesses, have had to do these licensed properties that are real people or are, you know, My Little Pony horses or Transformer robots or whatever. And you have to meet these you have to be on model or, you know, there are different kind of things to look at. What was that process for you like as an artist? Did you have notes of things that you could and couldn't do, or did every page have to have some review process?
Every page has a review process. Everything has to go first to Dark Horse Editorial. They have their pass on changes, and their changes are usually like the same kind of changes you would get from any story editor. You know, you're not putting enough emphasis on this. This guy needs to turn around so that the dialogue works, kind of a thing. You need to flip this panel so that it reads better because we want to have her talking before him. That's like normal stuff. I'm totally used to that. But then it gets shot up to Lightstorm, and you know, they come back and it's like Tusay doesn't look like Tusay. Okay, what does that mean? Okay.
Which one's Tusay again?
The names have been killing me. The names have been killing me. Because in my brain I'll be like, okay, that's that guy. And I've got little model sheets for each one. But I don't, the names and the models aren't necessarily clicking in my brain as one thing. So
it's got to be. I mean, they're humanoid. They have eyes and nose and mouth. You have some general touchstones to go through, but then you have some things that are exaggerated or, you know, flattened or
right. Yeah. And I have to say, they have not been as bad as the Paramount people were for Star Trek. I mean, if you got Star Trek wrong, Jonathan Frakes might show up at your house and kick you in the stones because
he seems
from what. From what I understand, I did character sheets for that Star Trek Deviations book I was telling you about. And those character sheets got shot to each individual actor's representatives to get okayed on their look because we had changed their look from the movie because it was a different timeline, right? And each one of them had to sign off on the look. And if originally I had Jonathan Frakes had like a big, long Viking beard and his head was like shaved on the sides. I mean, he looked like a total tough guy. He was a real rough and tumble dude.
Yeah.
And they're like, you got to pull that back a little bit.
Frakes wasn't down to be the barbarian type.
I'm sure he never saw it. I'm sure it was one of his representatives like, this doesn't look enough like the Jonathan that we know. So Lightstorm hasn't been nearly so tough as that kind of stuff. Only with the humans. And I guess it's because the Na'vi have those, you know, they look like cats. Yeah. You're not used to seeing that head shape and those ears are mounted up here rather than here.
Right.
And they have these, I have drawn so many braids. They all have crazy long hair.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, every project has its like challenges, you know, it's specific things that maybe are more cumbersome than you might think about.
Right.
For these guys, is it the hair?
It's the hair. It's the braids. They have to fall the right way. And they have to, I mean, this is not Lightstorm. This is me. This is like my own personal critique saying this, you know, you got to get these braids right. I'm drawing braids forever for days. And I finally created a little shorthand to be able to just and knock them out real fast. But it took a couple of issues to kind of get there.
Are you on this series? Are you working all digital? Are you working print and scanning and doing a combination?
I haven't done a printed page of comics since 2003. Everything I've done in this new version has all been digital, and it stinks that I don't have any artwork to to sell and to share and to
put on your wall. Remember that thing you did? And
I mean, there are guys, they won't go digital because they double their income selling their artwork off. And I don't blame them one bit. If you can get it, man, go get it.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I'm seeing more and more people who are doing a hybrid too, that are doing some amount of penciling on paper. So there is some sort of an artifact, and then kind of scanning that and cleaning it up digitally and being able to rework some things and moving some things around. I know I'm just kind of leaving a little trail here for you if you ever want to make some of that Na'vi money to buy some. All right, what was the metal that they had to have? Not
unobtainium.
Unobtainium, not infantanium, which I wanted to call it. Unobtainium. That's right.
I like infantanium better. That's nice.
Well, feel free to pitch that at your next meeting.
Yeah, so they're definitely going to listen to me. That jackass
is real low. It's real low. I had a question come in from Drew. Drew runs the website avatarsequels.com, so he obviously has a vested interest in what you're doing with this project. He wanted to know,
I don't have any artwork for you, Drew.
What's that?
I'm sorry, I don't have any artwork for you, Drew. There's nothing.
Exactly. He wanted to know, we talked about something that was a challenge, but if you had a favorite animal or character to draw in this series. And one thing that I was really, kind of struck by, again, I kind of forget about some of this stuff. It's been a minute, but how lush and how detailed some of the environments on this planet are, and how unique some of the species are that you see, like some of these horse-like things, and of course the big birds. And somebody's got
the mounts
over the coals about this. But what are is there a certain touchstone in this series that you're like, oh, I like drawing this. This is rad.
It's the Na'vi themselves. They have very long, slender, muscular bodies, even though they're very skinny, and their faces are sort of pulled out and leonine, I think is the phrase.
I like that word. Yeah.
I like their and in most of the scenes with humans, they're always towering over them, and sort of like impossibly tall. So that's been fun to draw. Getting the scale of the two characters together, it's like the humans are about 2/3 the size of Na'vi, I think they keep referencing.
Yeah, and you do have a couple of nice wider shots that show small groups talking, and of humans and Na'vi, and you do really see that difference.
If for every scene in this series, if it's not one, it's 50 of them, because they they hang out together. There's no social distancing in this group. There's always 50 of them.
Well, I pulled up one of the panels in particular because I was really interested in your approach to showing facial expression with the Na'vi, because like you said, I mean, they're humanoid, but they're also cat-like, and I'm going to not try to pronounce your fancy lion-like word, but you've got some of the same tools to play with, but you also have some different ones. Was there what was your approach to like showing them being kind of concerned or worried, or being angry, or what?
Yeah, it's tough.
Moves.
They don't have eyebrows.
Yeah,
and you wouldn't believe how hard it is to do expressions, like subtle expressions without eyebrows, because we use them constantly.
Yeah.
Every expression comes with some eyebrow combination. Like together and down is angry, together and up is worried. Up and separated is happy, surprised. Straight up is startled. Right?
You were able to do. They have a pronounced brow, but not eyebrows. So you
can do a few wrinkles, and the size of the eyes. They're widen the eyes, maybe, but you really had to do a lot with the eyes and the mouth, because the nose is this huge like
So
I don't know, like half a banana coming down their face. And there's not really much. They can't crinkle them that much because there's just not enough sort of stuff to crinkle.
Yeah. What an interesting set of problems. Like only as a comic book artist do you get these kinds of things dropped in your lap.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Aliens and they can't move their nose or like it's just something you don't need to worry about. So yeah, fill in the blanks. You'll figure it out.
I want you to draw this giant blue alien character, but I want him to have kind of a sassy jaunt,
Yeah.
So
yeah. Those are the kind of notes you get on this, right? Nothing but sassy jaunts.
How do you do disgusted without eyebrows? It's got to be a lot of lip curl.
Yeah, right.
And like one eye's open more than the other one, and their head's kind of back like this, like, I don't want to touch that.
Good things with the camera angle too, because there is obviously, if we're thinking about it, that we're in the human spot or not, but there is some looking up and some looking down at those faces, and just that sort of thing. Seeing a head cast down, causes some certain. We fill in the blanks with that a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I thought that the two things that really stood out for me in terms of the challenges here were like just kind of, all right, there's a vast organic massive planet, but then I also have to draw rigid machinery, and I also have to draw things that aren't humans but are kind of humans. They all have to
that I got lucky there. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't have like hind legs, like they're not centaurs or something. That would be terrible.
Well, those horse things are kind of crazy. They're kind of like a Clydesdale mixed with what, like a Brachiosaurus? How would you describe those horse things?
They've got these weird long anteater noses that I didn't even remember. I remembered the horse creatures, but it wasn't until I started looking at the photographs and the reference material that I was like, that is so crazy. They've got multiple eyes down their head.
Yeah.
It's a mess, man. It's a mess. I didn't have to do a lot of character work, like a lot of creature work, though. The mounts, which I'm blanking on what their names are right now. There was some of that, and but there was, and the first page of the first issue, you see a winged creature.
Yeah.
But after that, it's kind of mostly just Na'vi and humans.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, this is a miniseries that's out now from Dark Horse. You can pick up copies at a comic shop near you, or you can just buy them from us. Doesn't matter where you are. The cool thing about ours is, check that out. That copper bronzy Sharpie right over there. Josh was kind enough to stop by on his holiday break to. I make it sound like you're a school kid. Your holiday break, you're just out and about, popping around. He made it by our shop here in Savannah and signed copies for us. Of course, this is a limited number of copies that we have. We are selling these just at cover price. So $3.99 if you buy a copy of Avatar: The Next Shadow #1 at neighborhoodcomics.com. It comes signed and will be shipped right out to you wherever you are. So thank you very much for doing that, Josh. Josh has been a great supporter and friend to the shop, and I am very grateful for all the super kind things that he has done to help promote us, especially during this last brutal year with things being anything but normal all around the world, and even here at your neighborhood comic shop. So thank you very much, Josh. You are a prince, you're a gentleman, you're a fantastic artist, and if people don't know, I'll say that you're my friend.
I appreciate it, man.
Josh, thanks so much. Take care. Stay well. Try to keep your sanity. And next time you got something out, man, of course, reach out. Let us know. We'll be pounding on your door to do this again. And hey, maybe we'll just do it for giggles.
Later this year, original graphic novel, 200 and some odd pages of it coming out.
There you go. Go. We're going to talk about that for sure. But before I let you go, is there a book that you think that's not yours, a book that you haven't worked on, that you think people should pick up and give a shot? Is there anything out there you want to give a quick shout out for folks to?
Something that's not mine. Let's see. What am I reading right now? Wonder Woman: Dead Earth was very pretty.
So pretty.
I just got done reading, or I'm like halfway through. The Chris Samney book. What is it called? Firepower. Yeah. So pretty. Yeah. His storytelling is just the best. It's the best.
It's a beautiful book. Absolutely. And the first trade just came out today. So if you're somebody who doesn't always pick up the singlet with the second trade, the first was a prelude, and the first proper,
That's the one I'm reading is the prelude. Then, yeah, I can't wait to pick up the first like real story.
And that's a genre that I don't really like have an affinity for, that kind of martial arts kind of, thing. But gosh, it is such a great story, and it's beautifully drawn and executed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great one. I'll let you go out on that high note. Thanks again, Josh. Take care. Stay well. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
That is it for this episode. Oh, I can call it an issue. That sounds fun. I'll do that. That is it for this issue of the Neighborhood Comics Convo. I want to give a big thanks to Josh Hood for joining us. You can follow Josh on all of those awesome social media platforms. We're going to include a link here in the show notes if you want to go out and check him out on Twitter, on Instagram. He's a great follow everywhere. Be sure to check out Avatar: The Next Shadow from Dark Horse. Josh is the artist on that. And I cannot recommend highly enough We Can Never Go Home. That's a trade paperback available right now at a comic shop near you from Black Mask. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for supporting the shop. You can check out the show notes down below for links to purchase Josh's books that we talked about here in the show. And again, our copies of Avatar: The Next Shadow #1 all come signed. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your support. And stop by your comic shop. I don't have an outro for this, so take care. Stay well. Stay healthy.